Good evening, YouTube. Your man, always George Page, coming to you live on YouTube. Well, folks, I saw this afternoon, and I said, you know what, I got to do a video about this. If I don't, I'll be, it wouldn't be me. I love movies. I'm a movie buff. I often quote stuff from movies, and this guy, the movies he made over the years are just some legendary movies. I mean, classics. He is one of the top classic action heroes of my period, of my era. Being that I was born in the '70s, grew up in the '80s and the '90s, and became of age through the 2000s. And he is a legend. This is one Mister Sylvester Stallone. I mean, he is a legend. You know him by several of the names from his movies like such as Rocky Balboa, hey Rocky, Rocco. Rambo. Tango and Cash. Also the Creed movies where he reprises that role. I mean, he is a legend. Now, Sylvester was born Sylvester Enzo. Actually, he was actually born Michael Sylvester, Garzinio Stallone, but they changed the name to. They cut out the Michael and it was Sylvester Enzo Stallone. So he could have been Michael Stallone if he wanted to be, but he stuck with Sylvester. It was his name. Now he was born to Italian American family, being his father Frank Senior and his mother Jackie. Jackie Stallone back in the day. Jackie used to run the wrestling organization Glow. And he had two other siblings, his younger brother Frank, who is his brother between him is Jackie. And then his later on, his parents separated, and he had also got some more siblings, a half brother from his father Frank Senior, and also a half sister by his mother Jackie. And as a young man, he was a people didn't you realize people don't realize about here. Reason why he has that kind of limp on his eye because when he was a baby, they used forceps. Back then, when he was trying to get a baby, they used forceps. I mean, the whole forceps kind of hit him across the eye and caused that reason why his left eye kind of has that little lean to it. He didn't get it from fighting; he got it from when he was being born. But later on, he is a grown man. He grew up in his earlier years. He was he lived in he was born in Hell's Kitchen, but his family moved to Manhattan, and then he also lived in Flatbush. And he was very a smart young man. He was also athletic. He was a wrestling. He was into wrestling. He was into other things. I mean, it was he went to the Notre Dame Academy and in Philadelphia, and also he was also part of the Charlotte um, Hall Military Academy. You know, and he spent some time doing going to college. He went to the College of America in Switzerland. And then, he started his acting career a later part of the '60s. He did some small movies here and there. He had some roles in TV shows. He also, people might remember the story about him doing a movie called Stud and something other. It was like it's kind of low-core porno. And then right about, I think it was 67, no, actually 74, he did a movie with some upcoming actors like himself, which was the movie, the I think it was Lords of Flatbush. I want to be sure I remember because I'm looking at the Wikipedia. It was the let's see, I want to be right. Yeah, the Lords of Flatbush, and there was Henry Winkler right there and Perry King. Everybody knows the Fonz. This is what I think the idea. Well, I think this was the idea for the Fonz, I believe, for Henry Winkler. Later on, and then he did some other movies later on. After that, he did a movie which was the movie that made his career, and that was Rocky. The idea of Rocky came from when he went to a fight between Chuck Weber, who was like a local club fighter in New Jersey, and Muhammad Ali. Everybody knows the story of how Ali was tripped by Weber. Somebody say he got knocked down, he got tripped, and then he did the idea for Rocky. So he went and wrote the screenplay, and it was produced later on. And then that next year after the movie came out, he got 2 Oscar nominations for Best Actor and Best Screenplay. And that's history. That's the one thing he has over Schwarzenegger. He has an Oscar. And later on, he did a movie called Fist, where he played a union organizer, kind of based loosely on Jimmy Hoffa, some might say. And then he came back to like that, about that following year after that, after Rocky, after Fist, was he did Rocky 2, which was was the movie in which between him and Carl Weathers was like the where we all know the first Rocky he lost, but this is what he won, and it was a success. It became a series after that. And then he did a movie called Nighthawks with Billy D. Williams, the late Rutger Howard. He played a cop working in New York, going after terrorists. It was played by Rutger Howard. I mean, I watched that movie quite a time. It's one of the little known movies people don't know about. Then he did the movie, Escape to Victory with Michael Caine and also the legendary soccer player Pele. It's a classic. Everybody's seen that movie before. It's one of the movies that people don't really think about it, but it was a very great dramatic movie where he played World War II, detainees, and they played soccer against the Germans, and they escaped. And also that next year after that, he did Rocky 3 with Mr. T playing as Clubber Lang. You remember when the statue that's the put up for Rocky at the Philadelphia library, and you remember when Mr. T gave it, "Hey man, hey woman, yeah, come on here and say what real men can do." I mean, it's a classic. And then the movie First Blood about John J. Rambo, and it's a classic movie. It was more, it was a bit of an action, but it was you had the late Robert Corrina and also the late forgot his name. I know his name, but it just kind of escapes me. But I remember him. He passed away some time ago. And then people don't notice. His brother Frank sung the soundtracks to that movie. I think it was for the song First Blood. And Frank could sing, and also Frank had been in many movies himself. Also, remember Frank was also in the movie Tombstone. He played the guy that Doc stabbed. And also later on he produced some movies. He produced the movie Staying Alive, which was the sequel to Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta. And by then he was feeling himself and he was doing pretty good. I mean, the Rocky movies were successful, and and he was making his money. Those he got into comedy, which was Rhinestone, with Dolly Parton, which he wrote that movie. It was it's one of those movies that you really want to forget, but it's a classic in no way. And then later on, he did Rambo: First Blood 2. And that was I mean, we all remember the part when he at the end we says, "I want what they want for my country to love me as much as I love it." And that's what we black people want. We want a country to love us as much as we love it. And then, he was married to his by the time he divorced his first wife, Sasha, and there was the mother of his two children, his first son Sage and his other son Sirguth, I think I can't say his name right. And and he didn't meet up with another actress model from Sweden by the name of Bridget Nielsen. They did the movies. She was in Rocky 4, where she played Ivan Draco's wife was played by Dolph Lundgren, who's actually himself also Swedish. He was a Swedish guy playing a German, but it's back then. It was in the 80s, and he directed and choreographed the fight scenes for most of the Rocky movies, all the way from the first one to even down to the last one. He always had his hands in it because Rocky was his baby. They did a movie called Over the Top, and that's a classic. It's kind of like it was the arm wrestling version of Rocky, and we know that he does the over the top thing, and he pulling the guy's arm down. It's a classic. And then later on, he did Rambo 3. Well, somebody call it First Blood 3, but it's called Rambo 3, where it's the one where he fights alongside the Afghanistan. Because for a good while, remember when 9/11 hit, they wasn't showing this movie much anymore. The fact was, he was fighting with a group called they wasn't the Taliban, they were the Mujahideen. They were the ones who were fighting against the Russians. But it's a classic. It's a great movie. When the guy said, who are you? And he said, "I'm your worst." He said, the guy said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm your worst nightmare." That's a classic. And they did Tango Cash with Kurt Russell. And that's a great movie. I love that movie. I remember the part when he catches the guy and he called Rambo pussy. That was it was a great comedy action flick. I think there was one point they were talking about trying to do a sequel, but it never happened. I don't know why. And then he met his third wife, future wife, Jennifer Flavin, who was his model. And and at that time he was doing Rocky 4, actually Rocky 5, and that was with his son Sage. And that was the first movie he did with Sage. You know, and then later on he did a couple of bombs such as "Stop My Mom Will Shoot." Oh God, with Estelle Getty from the Golden Girls. It was a funny movie, but it wasn't like his best movie. I mean, it was not his best movie at all. But and you can't forget that he did also a movie called Oscar. It was wasn't really his best movie. And then he did a movie. He kind of bounced back with Cliffhanger. and that was a great movie. It was a classic. Him being like he was a mountain climber, and saving people's life, and he had to stop because the girlfriend of his friend got killed. He did a movie also called The Specialist that year also. And some, he also did Judge Dredd, which some people like to think of, not don't want to think about. It was, I don't think. And then he also did the movie, Demolition Man with Sandra Bullock, and that was a pretty good movie. And Wesley Snipes with blonde hair, and it was one of the movies that was so. It's a good movie. And later on, he finally married Jennifer Favor after it was a situation with him and uh, you know, was it, what's Faye Dickinson when she said that she had his baby, but it was somebody else's. And he married her, and he started having their own family. And then he started the movie Copland, and it was a little bit more of a drama for him, working with somebody like, you know, um, he was working with Robert De Niro and the late Ray Liotta. There was, also there was a cast of a lot of not top notch actors in this movie. But it was a pretty good movie. Some people didn't like it because the fact was he had to put on so much weight. He really wasn't the Rocky that everybody looking at. He wanted to stretch out his acting chops, but it was a decent movie. And then it wasn't that long. He did a couple more movies after that, such as The Good Life, and also he voiced over for movies like Ants, and he did a movie called Get Carter. But then he came back to the thing that made him famous, and that was Rocky Balboa, as he was the agent Rocky coming back to come back and fight for one more time. So it's Rocky six, you might want to call it. It's called Rocky Balboa, but it's technically Rocky six. And then he did, another movie classic was Rambo. It was just called Rambo. For a long time it was First Blood, but they called it Rambo. And it was a great movie. I liked the movie. It was really Rambo really show out in this movie. And he did some movies such as Spy Kids 3, the 3D movie, also some other movies, not as much known. But then, 2010 he did the Expendables. And this was like an action flick with people like you had Terry Crews, you had him and Dolph Lundgren working again, you had Jet Li, you had, Mickey Rourke, you had Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was a good movie. The first movie was great. I mean, it's a classic. I mean, and also did a movie called Escape Plan. And and this movie, it was all right. He got to work with Schwarzenegger. And this is one of the second movies that he worked with Schwarzenegger. Remember, he also was in Schwarzenegger. Also, him and Bruce Willis had a part in this first Suspendables. And Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis has been, working there for a long time. And also, this came out was the movie, Expendables 2, which you had Dolph Lundgren in that one. You had Chuck Norris, you had Bruce Willis, and also Arnold was in it. And Jet Li wasn't in that movie too much. But, it was, I don't know what was going on. He had like a little role, but then he wasn't in the rest of the movie. And then he did another movie called Bullet to the Head. One of the lesser known movies, but it's still a slide movie. Everybody watched it. It's a classic, you might as well say. And then he wasn't long, he did another expendable movie with Expendables 3. He had, Schwarzenegger again. Bruce Willis wasn't this time, so he swapped out Bruce Willis for Harrison Ford. He had Tony Banderas. He had Wesley Snipes. You also had Mel Gibson as the bad guy in this one. I mean, a lot of, and this was Ron Ramsey's second movie, I believe, that year, second or third movie that year. It was a lot of, it talks about maybe another Spendable movies. It's all up there what they want to do about that. And then, wasn't long he did Creed, which is, everybody knows Creed. It was the second movie, it was the first movie in which the story of Rocky Balboa. So you kind of like, you might want to call it Rocky 7, but it's kind of the offset of Rocky. It's the sequel to it's part of the Rocky line with which we follow the story of Adonis, who's the son of Apollo Creed. But to me, I don't feel like, why was he the son of Apollo Creed? Why not he play the role of I don't know, his grandson. I mean, I don't know. I never understood why that. And then, he won his first, Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor for that movie. He was been nominated in the past, but now he has two things he got over Arnold. He has a Golden Globe and an Oscar. And, he being a father, and raising his three daughters and being with Jennifer Flavin for almost, I think, over 20 years. I mean, and, you got to expect that about the man. And then he did some more movies, such as he was in the Guardian of the Galaxy 2, also another Escape Plan movie, and some other movies that not as well known. He did some voiceover work too, and then now he did that following year around 2018 he did Creed 2, which was brought back the return of Dolph Lundgren's character Ivan Drago fight because Adonis was fighting his son. If you remember, Ivan Drago killed Apollo Creed, his father, who should have been his grandfather. Now he's fighting the son of the man who killed his kid, his father. It's kind of it's a weird movie. And then he did some movies like some other movies like Suicide Squad, where he votes over for the character of King Shark, and then he did Rambo: Last Blood. That was in 2019, and that's a classic. It was, I didn't get to see that one. It's the last Rambo movie. He went after some Mexican drug dealers that killed his goddaughter, and it was just just seeing him go out and just like a bang. And that same year also after he did Creed, he said it was the end of Rocky, because you remember in Creed, in the first Creed movie, he was sick with cancer. So there's a good chance they might, if they do the third Creed, they're gonna have to kill him off. And think you could do a Creed movie without nobody from the original Rocky line. It's just, you can always bring back Paulie, but I don't know. You can, I don't know. It's just, you just can't do any kind of Rocky spinoff without Rocky. And his years with his relationship with Arnold Schwarzenegger, him been business partners in the past. Their competitive natures of being who's the top action star. Him and Bruce Willis and Arnold Schwarzenegger, they had a business for a while. It was called Planet Hollywood. It was like a restaurant twist thing, but there was Planet Hollywood was closed down like maybe years ago. I mean, things change. I think it was too expensive. What people said. And like I said, he was into art and also was in the political thing. He is a Republican. He supports Trump. And he went to Trump when he tried to, absolve the great late um, Jack Johnson's record for, you remember he was with a white woman and he went to prison for that. And that's a good thing that he did. But he could have done something a lot more. And now he's doing, I think it's a TV, I think for streaming service, I think for Amazon Prime or somebody. It's called The King of Tulsa, where he plays an ex-convict who gets out of prison after serving, I think, like 20 some years, and he's trying to get back into the criminal society. But it seems that he's getting to his age now. He can't believe it. He's 76 years old. That means in another 4 more years he's gonna be 80. And a lot of these action stars we go with are getting older. Like Schwarzenegger. Like, as you heard that Bruce Willis, he got sick. He's sick with something. He's not gonna be doing too much acting anymore. And it's just a legend. It's growing up watching his movies. Seeing him on TV. Stuff he has done over the years. I mean, he has a lot of other credits. From TV to movies. He did a lot of stuff. You know, and also you can't remember when years ago he did the show, the Contender, the original Contender, where it was basically was getting these boxes together. And that was a very popular show. And he was on CVs like the Muppet Show. He did Kojak, Police Story. He get an episode of Saturday Night Live. He did an episode where he was doing the What Is Love with What Is Love guys. It's just he's just a legend. But I'm still a fan of his. I still say he's Rocky. He's like, yo, Adrian. And I his quote from Rocky Balboa is, no matter how hard you hit, it's how much you can get hit and keep moving forward. I mean, and he wrote that. He wrote that. You got him just as talented this man is. But like he's a legend, and he's just one of these guys that you can never forget. And I think he's one of the greatest actors in the world, greatest producer, writer. It's just so much about him. Some of the political stuff I don't like too much, but the fact is, hey, sometimes some things he can put you aside, but not too often. But like I said, I want to wish Mr. Balboa, Mr. Rambo, Mr. Sylvester Stallone a very, very happy birthday, and many, many more. And we just may always George Page. Don't like, subscribe. I'm out.